Do my thoughts mean something? Are they intrusive? Are they wrong? Are they inappropriate? Am I a bad person for having them? Should I only think good things? But how do I know it's good? What's the definition of that? This might be a longer video than I thought. I'm Dr. Patrick McGrath. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer at NOCD. And if you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. And if you like some of the content we create, go to the Get to Know OCD podcast, and you can subscribe to that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many discussions out there about quote-unquote intrusive thoughts. And my good friend John Grayson, who I do webinars with once a month, would say there's no such thing as an intrusive thought. Thoughts are just thoughts. That is all that they are. Everybody has them. All right. Since you cannot be seen by anyone else, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Have any of you ever thought while driving over a bridge, what if I just turn the wheel of the car really quick right now and shoot the car into the water? Have any of you, while standing on a stairway, thought, I could totally push everyone down these stairs right now? Have any of you ever thought, when maybe you're at a mall and there's children screaming, shut up, but not yelled at kids? Am I a terrible, awful, horrible person? Well, at least one of you watching this probably thinks I am. And you know what? I'm okay with that. But it comes down to this notion that we've decided that thoughts should be labeled, and they are sometimes good and sometimes bad. And what I would like to get across is this idea that there is no such thing as a good thought or a bad thought. There are just thoughts. When I do my webinars every week, people want to ask me all sorts of questions about the things that pop in their head. And they'll ask, why do I have this thought? And why does it feel so real? And let me just say, when we're talking about thoughts, if we really want to be inclusive in OCD, we're also going to talk about images and urges coming as part of this, because an obsession is a thought and an image or an urge. So any of the three of them coming through. But for the purposes of this video, we'll say thoughts for simplicity. And people want to know why they have those thoughts. I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, my buddies and I were watching a bunch of movies, and there were some B horror films that were out there. One of them was called The Toxic Avenger. And it was a nerdy kid who was picked on by a bunch of people. And at one point, they threw him into a vat of toxic waste. And he emerged the next morning 3 times his size and huge, and he became the Toxic Avenger. And he decided bullies were not going to be tolerated in the world anymore, and he was going to save all the small kids who were being picked on from all the bullies. And so there's a scene where he's driving his car, as he called it, the Toxic Avenger mobile, and one of the kids who had picked on him was riding a bicycle. And I will never forget this scene for the rest of my life. At least I hope not, because if I do, it means other things are going on. But I will always remember that he sees this kid on his bike who had picked on him, and he says a phrase that is just stuck in my head. 50 points. Like, if he ran that kid over, it would somehow score him 50 points in the game of life. And so what does he do in the movie? He runs the kid over. And he goes, 50 points. To this day, I cannot see a person walking across the street or riding a bicycle without assigning a point value to them as I drive past them. And guess what? I've never run over any one of them whatsoever, but that thought is there. So let me ask you, am I a bad person? Am I having a bad thought? Or am I a human being, and all of us experience odd or strange thoughts or images or urges all of the time? I'll do one now, for example, just to kind of prove a point. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you probably know where I'm going, but I will now wish for the ceiling to collapse upon me in front of all of you within the next 10 seconds. Let's see what happens. Go. Come on, ceiling. time to fall, crush me, take me out, here's your chance. This is the 10,495th or so time I've tried this. This, I think, is really the time you're going to do it. Or maybe not. Maybe it won't actually happen. And look, we just passed the 10-second mark, and I am still here. What do we learn from this? Well, we learn that thoughts don't make things happen. So, therefore, what is so bad about a thought? Well, you may say, well, the thought goes against my character. I don't like to think that thought. I don't want that thought. Great. Guess what just happened? You guaranteed that thought sticking around. The moment you don't want to have a thought is the moment that that thought gets stuck in your head. Let me try another thing with all of you. I was recently visiting a bunch of people and found out that one of the children had lice. Now, lice are these amazing little things that get onto your body and crawl all over you and put little bites into you, and then they get into your hair and they lay eggs, and then all the little lice get out of there and they crawl around your follicles and they get into places that you don't want, and they leave little white flaky things around, and then they may crawl down your neck and everything. And are any of you itching yourself right now as I'm describing the lice? People out there are who are watching this video right now, definitely, let me tell you. Guess what? I didn't see anyone with lice at all this week, and I totally made that up. But what happened in my describing lice to you? You probably started to feel urges to itch or scratch yourself because you could feel the lice crawling all over your head, and you just wanted to get them out of there, even though they weren't really there. What do we learn from this? Thoughts can be very powerful. We can feel things. We can convince ourselves of things being true even without any evidence of it whatsoever. We can use the feelings we have to substantiate the thoughts that we have. In fact, this is often driven by a phrase that I hear all of the time. It feels so real. And I always say, well, of course it feels real. It has to feel real. If it didn't feel real, I don't have a job, right? If it didn't feel real, you would be able to say, just a weird thought, whatever, and you would move on. But instead, OCD goes to that level where it feels so real. And now you think, well, but if it feels that real, it must be real, because how could it not be real and feel that way, right? Or let me ask you another question. Is there anything that you couldn't justify with the phrase, but it feels like? Right? I could say, it is so cold in here that I'm going to have frostbite in a moment, because it feels like that's what's going to happen. And yet, everyone else in here is either wearing short sleeves or shorts or flip-flops or things of that nature, and nobody else appears to be cold. But to me, it feels like I'm about to have frostbite because it's so cold, and therefore, to me, it's true. It's real. And this is one of the things that OCD does. It goes to the, but it feels like, right? So it's not just that you're having an intrusive thought or image or urge. You're having an associated feeling, which is often that fight, flight, or freeze response that we have. And what have we learned in our lives when we have the fight, flight, or freeze response? We've learned that we're in danger. And if we have a fight, flight, or freeze response, we better darn well do something to get the heck out of that situation, or fight our way out of that situation, or freeze and hope nobody notices us. Well, because the OCD triggers that, and we've learned that when that gets triggered, things are bad and awful and horrible and dangerous, OCD seems to be pretty bad and awful and horrible and dangerous. And therefore, whatever thought or image or urge OCD has, triggering that seems to be very real. This is where therapy comes in. Because what do we do in exposure and response prevention treatment for OCD? We expose people to those very thoughts and images and urges and get people to not do the compulsions, to stop doing the things to neutralize the obsessions, and learn just because it feels real doesn't mean that it is real. So I can wish for the ceiling to collapse on me all day and have absolutely no fear of it whatsoever. Now, could it happen? 100% it could happen. I'm not denying the fact that it could happen. But guess what? I have no fear whatsoever of it happening right now. I'm going to live my life as if the ceiling is absolutely fine, even though I'm thinking about the fact that it might not be. And that's where we want to go in treatment for people. If you're experiencing intrusive thoughts and images and urges, and you're having these feelings associated with them that feel so real, know that there is still treatment available. And if you're looking for that treatment, check us out at NOCD.com, where we work with OCD and related conditions like trichotillomania or excoriation, which is hair pulling and skin picking. And we work with tics, and we also work with hoarding. We've got people available in all 50 states and in other countries. And you can just go online to NOCD.com to be paired with a therapist who is trained to work with you in these areas. I hope that this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you soon.